So today I'm talking to Eleni Parisi. I have invited her here today to talk about some things that I really don't talk about that much, but I think is going to be so important for our community. And so Eleni is an educator by trade, but we're going to talk about the military lifestyle, what it takes to be resilient. We all know that we have to be resilient in this lifestyle, but what it takes to be resilient and what that looks like, not just for us as military spouses, but how we also support our children in that. And so that is the conversation that I am bringing you today. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and introduce her. Okay, Eleni, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I am a teacher and I do help parents to understand their kids. And I teach at school. I teach special education mostly. And then in the afternoon, I help parents.
That's amazing. And the way that you connected, I reached out because you're a fellow military spouse. So will you just talk a little bit about your military affiliation?
Of course, I'm new in this group, and I just became a military wife 2 years ago. With my husband, we have relocated twice. And it's very exciting to meet this community because it's a community that really has resilience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Resilience is key, right? To living this kind of lifestyle. It's almost like you can't not. You're
Exactly.
gonna survive. You've got to become resilient.
Yeah. And it's amazing because my husband is always saying that the military wives are the ones who support the military.
Yes. So I don't know if I told you this when you and I first talked. I was in the military first before I met my husband. So I'm an Army veteran and my husband is now an Army retiree. But before I even met him, I was serving, doing my own thing, didn't even know he existed. And I had this, I've shared this in other YouTube videos, but I haven't shared it with you. There's these like stickers, bumper stickers and like window stickers that say, well, because we're Army. So I was on an Army installation, it said, Army wife is the hardest job in the military. Or I'm sure they have it for the other branches as well, right? And I used to just turn my nose up at that because as a soldier, I was like, I felt like something was being taken away from how difficult my job was at the time. And I had no perspective outside of that. I joined at 18. So my whole perspective was, teenage years and then soldier life. And so I was like, whatever. What are they talking about? They don't know how hard my job is, right? Fast forward to getting married to a service member, becoming an Army wife, getting out of the service myself and becoming an Army wife and eating my words, wholeheartedly agreeing that being an Army wife was so much harder than being a soldier. And this is only my own personal perspective. I'm sure it varies for everybody, but being a military wife is no joke. It is definitely a tough job. And that resilience that you mentioned, absolutely necessary part.
Exactly. And it really builds character. It's the opportunity, if you want to see it like that in a positive way, to really build character because you're the one as a military spouse that you organize everything. You have to rebuild your life in terms of professional and personal relationships a lot of the times. You have to organize the kids. You have to find out a lot of information while your spouse is working. And yeah.
There is definitely an entire learning curve to getting married to the military, right? Learning.
It was also coming to the United States. So as a spouse, I came from another country, another continent, into the United States, and my husband relocated straight away, right? So being you and basically understanding how to get involved in the community, how to do simple things like pumping, put gas in the car. I didn't know how to do that. In Europe is not like that. Some other person is servicing. So simple things
so
like that.
Yeah.
Simple things like that. A military spouse has to learn for themselves. So I really admire military spouses for that.
Yeah. And on that note, thank you for your service as a military spouse. I would also say it goes the other way. women who were born in the US, but your service member has been stationed overseas. And in that case, if we do get to go with them, learning the idiosyncrasies of being in another country and how they function and learning to fall into that.
Of course,
So,
and understanding other cultures. And that's very important because that really gets you to see what other cultures have in common and what they have in differences. So for me, that was eye-opening because I saw as humans what are the core things that we have in common. They're everywhere the same. We need funding, we need communication. However, the way sometimes we need to communicate with other cultures is very, very different.
mm-hmm.
And spouses have to do that, but at the same time their kids have to adapt into that much in a bigger level.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give everybody who's watching kind of an idea of the premise here, when I invited you to come do this, we'll call it an interview, but it's totally going to be like laid back and conversational. But when I invited you on with me today, we had discussed the resilience that we've already really started talking about and how necessary it is. Now, I usually talk to military spouses because that's my audience, military spouse entrepreneurs specifically. But I know there's a lot of other people that tune in and, will find this video. And so we also wanted to expand it today to not just military spouses, but the children as well, and talk about that resilience and some ways that military families can incorporate certain things to help them maintain that or build that level of resilience that we need to not just survive in the military lifestyle, but to really thrive in the lifestyle, because while it can be very difficult, and I think that's even an understatement, it can be very rewarding as well. There's so much that we can take from this experience with us. But if we're struggling all the way through, we don't get to enjoy all of those things. And so today you're going to help me and share some. Yes.
I love how you put it, because that's exactly the thing, to enjoy it. Because as military spouses, there is a lot of hard things we do. The feeling of actually enjoying it and giving ourselves credit for what is happening sometimes is missing, and modeling it as spouses, as mothers to our kids, and then helping our kids also to get there and get the sensation of joy and connection and understanding that what we're doing, it is very hard, and but at the same time kind of relax, accepted it. I think it's the key. You have talked a lot about how modeling and being into this role of a military spouse and taking care of ourselves in order to be able to show it to the kids is crucial. It's the key here. For me, the most number one thing is to feel connected, to reach out to other spouses that I have been there, because I guess the most difficult thing is feeling lonely, feeling that, hey, I'm in a new place, I have to do all that, why should I call somebody and say I'm in struggle? And a lot of people don't do that, and I think it's very, very important to reach out and be honest that, hey, this is what I'm going through. And when you call somebody and you're like, I'm relocating now, I'm not organized, I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to do. And the other person being like, I understand. This connection is crucial.
I agree. And I think the knowing that it's important to reach out and getting over the hurdle of being afraid or resistant to reaching out are two different things, right? Logically, you and I we can talk this to death. I think both of you and I can talk this to death because, it's a thing that I talk about too, the importance of community and a strong community and community for different facets of your life, right? Different aspects of your life. But now let me ask you this, because I think I'm a good combination of introvert and extrovert. I think I tend to be more extroverted. I am very social. And if I want something, I'm going to go get it. So if I want to be friends with somebody, I'm the kind of person who's going to go, hey, do you want to have coffee with me? Not everybody's like, do you think that you're kind of more introverted or extroverted in that way?
I think I'm a combination, but more introverted.
Okay.
So I have to teach myself and to remind myself that, hey, now Eleni, now you're going to ask the person to go for a coffee. Now you're going to ask the person to go for a hike. So it is kind of programmed to
Yeah.
me. And then it comes naturally. Then once I get to know the person a little bit, then I can be extroverted with them. To begin and initiate this contact, it's it requires of me a lot of energy.
Yes.
So, and exposure, and to be vulnerable with them. I feel very vulnerable when I do that.
Yeah.
There was not a situation ever that anybody said no. Maybe they said, "Hey, I cannot do it," but they never rejected me, which is the big fear of an introvert like this.
Yeah.
So when you do that,
Mhm.
when you do that, you actually understand that it's a very safe place, especially the community that we have in as military spouses.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
love that. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, I was ready to say that it's for me. What helped me very much was tapping into my own interests.
Mhm.
When you are interested in what you're doing, I like yoga, I like hiking, but it doesn't matter what you like. When you are
Yeah.
interested in that, you become interesting. Other
Mhm.
people want to connect with you because you have a lot to share. So number one for me, every time I relocate, is tap into my interests and starting that. And sometimes with hiking, for example, I would go by myself, and then something will happen, and I will find somebody who is maybe a meetup or a group who's been like, "Oh yeah, come here, come here."
Yeah.
We do the same.
That was, I love what you said that if you engage in your interests, or if you become interesting,
Yes.
and that is so brilliant. That's such a point. I love that you made, because it is key to remember. Like we fear all the time, right? And even as I say extrovert, also recognizing that it's more about the energy than being
Yeah.
social, right? But I also am very forward in social. And so I recognize that not everybody is. And it's so important to highlight, even for somebody who is social, that fear does come up, like the fear of rejection. That's just human nature. It's very normal. So to feel like afraid to reach out because you feel that you're going to be rejected, that's almost like the worst case scenario playing in our head. So if we're playing the worst case scenario, what if they reject me? What if they don't like me? What if they don't accept me? What if I don't fit in? Like, what are some of the ways that you think, or I know you talked about it a little bit, reminding yourself some of the self-talk and how you can just kind of quiet that voice and go for the thing?
Yeah, quieting the voice is another skill, and that requires energy. And I will understand when you relocate, you don't have that energy. You have a lot to do. You have a lot to take care
Yeah.
of, and especially if you're an introvert, it it's you have to act on it. You have to really try.
Yeah.
So uh, quieting the voice maybe for me is not the first step because it's very hard. I cannot
Mhm.
quiet the voice. I need first to do it, and then the voice be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we're okay." So
Okay.
it is for some people it works with
Yeah.
like affirmations and being able to control that voice. For me, it doesn't. It's there. And
Yeah.
first, I have to do it. I have to get involved. I have
Mhm.
to offer, as I have to offer something like maybe volunteer, do something for the community, and then it kind of lowers in my head.
Yeah.
Uh, so another technique that I would use is I would say feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like
Mhm.
feel comfortable. So we started the conversation by saying about joy. It doesn't feel like joy in the beginning for me. It doesn't. It's
No.
a struggle, and accepting that. When accepting that, hey, it's not going to be nice for a few days, weeks, sometimes it's
Yeah.
not going to be nice. It doesn't. It's not going to feel natural. It's not going to feel like we have a natural connection with the new people, and that is okay. When
Mhm.
I say in myself that this is okay and I accept the struggle, then the joy comes. It's magic.
Yeah. Oh, and that acceptance, right?
Yeah.
You're right. It's not always gonna. I will say, on a rare occasion I meet somebody and I'm like, my soul has known you forever, right? But most of the time when we meet somebody, it's totally uncomfortable. Like you don't know what they like, what their background is, the ins and outs of who they are as a person yet. So you don't know if what you're saying is going to resonate with them. And so you're kind of trying to just move and maneuver your way around the conversations that you all are going to have to fill them out, to see if, like, do we relate or vibe on these topics, or do we not? And is this going to be awkward because I've presented something that they don't resonate with? So yeah, there's definitely going to be like growing pains and an awkwardness at the beginning. But if you accept that it's all part of the process instead of fighting it or fearing it, I think that that's definitely key. That's a really great point you made.
Yeah, and then there's like how our brain works. Whatever we feel, we send the signals. And it's funny, if you become kind, you attract people, and people will see that kindness. So simple things like opening the door for somebody will see and notice that. And the signals you get, and now this is how the brain works, the signals you get is positive. So if you start with the state being in yourself that I am going to be the person who is going to be kind, I'm going to be the person who will show up acceptance, the things will come towards you this way.
Yeah, I love that. Now, okay, so this very much resonates and suits adults, military spouses, right? And really even outside of the military community, but adults. But so many of us in the community have kids too. And I've seen a lot of people, not just military, but definitely within the military community, when every single time we have to go to a new duty station, we move, those kids have to build their community too. And so for some kids, I think a lot less at a younger age, they are naturally very outgoing and they'll integrate pretty well. But a lot of kids struggle with, yes, they are resilient by nature, and they still struggle integrating into new communities. And it's going to feel different every time they move. Every location has a little bit of a different vibe than the last. And it's such a learning curve for them too. Can you talk about kids and their resilience and integrating into like a new duty station, for example?
Yeah, sure. The kids, they are natural in that because they make friendships much more easier. It depends, developmentally it depends. So if you have younger kids, you probably notice that it's easier because when we are younger, the connection is just like on topics like sports and games. When you become an adolescent, because the perception you have in your brain is about how my peers see me, and there's a lot in the body, and you want the acceptance very, very badly when you're an adolescent. That's a little bit harder because changing environment and having internal changes and having also brain changes, that creates a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
So the first thing, if I want to go to the core of the thing, is being able to model and teach the kids, whatever age they are, to be feeling okay with uncertainty. The more uncertainty you can get into your life and be okay, accept it, be like, this is life, full of uncertainty. Even if you're not a military wife, it's full of uncertainty. The most joy and happiness you can actually experience. So working with that. Now, on the practical side, there's a lot that you can do in order to help the kids. First, model it, like really show it to the kids how you would like them to be. And this is actually very helpful because for yourself, maybe you wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't take I'm going to talk to the other person. You wouldn't take the approach that is a little bit more childish.
Yeah.
You're as an adult, and you know that other adults are very busy and probably they're gonna say no just because they don't have the time. However, if you want to really help your kids, possibly you will find the courage to model it, to be like, they need to see me do it first, especially if they struggle. They need, and then another thing is to do it with them. So there are two aspects. When we move, I see the kids that they feel sad for what they lost. It's a loss. You need to sometimes grieve it. Sometimes it's very, very hard if you have very strong connections back in the previous stage. So the first stage is feeling the grief, feeling the sadness, and
Yeah.
having all the feelings about the past, the things you left. And the second, another thing and another skill set is we are in a new place and we need to create whatever needs to be created in our present. Now, do with them the thing about the past. Let's say, for example, you know they have strong friendships there, and you have as well, maybe as a mother and maybe as a entrepreneur. You know, you have the network. And let's say about friendships with for the kids is the most important. Sit down with them at the same structured time, because you cannot control where you are, but you can control when you do things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say structured and routine after lunch, and write a letter to your friend, your mama friend, back to the previous station. A letter, like using your hands, and having the kid, especially if they're younger, do the same for friends. Now, the person who receives an envelope is going to be so happy and connected. Is not the same as a message. It's
Yes.
not.
It's
When you
really not, because not nearly enough people do that anymore. So besides there's so many things that make it special, right? But just the
yeah,
surprise, like it's completely unexpected.
exactly, somebody will just wait for their bills on the post and will see their postcard, and it could be like 2 sentences.
Yeah.
This connection will transform the sadness, because you will be like, I understand that you're sad, that's why we're taking the time now, and we will do something nice about them. You know, it's a game. As a parent, you will feel very good doing it to your friends, because an adult, you will get a letter. Imagine the sensation as an adult, and at the same time you're modeling and doing it for your kid. So having such activities, be able to process what you left behind.
Yeah.
Connecting with your kid the same time. So in your present, you create shared memories that, hey, this is how we deal with what we left. And now, after processing that, using the same time after lunch, so the structure there, the consistency, using the same time to create the new. So now after lunch, every time after lunch, every Tuesday that we have the time, depending when on your schedule, let's send a message to a new community. Check the new things. So replacing slowly, gradually, by keeping a structure,
Mm-hmm.
the flow of how do you call it? Keeping a flow on how things are processed naturally.
Yeah.
I think that helps. That helps very much,
Yeah.
because again, it's 2 stages. You
Mhm.
have to accept something, and you're feeling something about what you left behind, and you have to create something new.
Yeah, I love that. Not enough people do handwritten letters anymore.
No.
And but like, I still get them from the older relatives in my family. And every time, it doesn't matter that I kind of expect it certain times a year from them. It's still special because it's so different. Even when it's expected, it's so different. But then when you tie in that just surprise element of it, and then the feeling of doing something nice for another person too, because in writing that letter, you are filling something in yourself as far as like, part of the healing process. But then you're also doing something nice. You're sending a surprise to another person. So that fills your cup on another level as well. I love that.
Yeah, and I'm mentioning handwriting because the handwriting is connected with how the brain works. So basically, you're processing sadness.
Yeah.
That's why many people say journal. It is
Yes.
so crucial that it passes through your own creation
Mhm.
in order for the brain to process. Hey, this is something we're processing now.
Yeah.
And especially if you have grief, if you left grief, it's grief you leave when you leave behind a connection where it's very strong for you.
Mhm.
So y- you help your body and
Mhm.
your brain to be able to say, we are surviving that.
Yeah.
We are actually doing well. And when you get now all the nice feelings you will get from the person that will react nicely, they will feel good about it. You are adding on your brain neurons the
Mhm.
sense of grief, sadness, processing, and happiness.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I love that you mentioned journaling, because that's the thing that I talk about all the time. And I very do specifically suggest that if you can commit to doing it, do it by hand. It's
Yeah.
just different connections of the brain are built when you do the journaling with hands, as opposed to dictating it into your phone or typing it into your computer. So that's, of course, I think it's brilliant because I talk it, but I'm
Yeah.
glad. It's nice to hear another person talk it, because I think people hear me say it so often. It's like, okay, Heather, great, got it. And then you offer it from a different perspective.
And it's powerful because it's when you're sending a letter, you can start writing to the other person, and then you can start and continue for yourself. You can share some things, some parts of the letter. Some others you may not want to share. You're not ready. However, it is real connection, either with yourself when you do it just for yourself, or with the other person that you left behind. And the fact that the letter will take 2 weeks to go there, it also, as a human being, now we have learned with the text messages that we have instant gratification. But as a human being, we grow not so fast. We're like, you have a little seed, and it takes time. Now, when you leave a friendship behind, and especially when you're young, when you're leaving like a friendship behind, you are kind of expected by life that you adapt very fast. Hey, you're young, you're gonna make new friends, everything's gonna be okay. This expectation pushes down the feelings. Journaling and sending a letter is actually allowing the brain to understand the timeline that the human being naturally needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And to process those emotions instead of kind of floating over them or pretending they don't exist or minimizing them, like you said. Okay. So we know that deployments are a reality, a very real thing in our community. I'm wondering if you can shed a little bit of light, talk about the resilience. We know the resilience is necessary for both the spouse and the children, but can you talk about kind of how we bring that into our reality through all of those really heavy emotions that deployments bring?
Yeah, so resilience comes from understanding that you're going to go through a difficult process internally. Because externally, it's very practical. You have to do what you have to do. But internally, you have to understand what you're going through, and being able to process, understanding, acknowledge it, being able to specifically say, I feel that that's what is happening inside of myself right now.
Yeah.
And that will help you process it and model it for your kids. So the most difficult thing, I guess, is the stress that is connected with that. If you are able to see yourself controlling yourself when you're feeling stressed, deployments will become easier. So the stress is the unknown. When you're feeling stress, you understand, you feel that there is a big unknown coming up. A lot of bad feelings will coming up because when you deploy, you anticipate to feel bad. So that also builds up. And also you anticipate that you're not going to be able to deal with it. And why? Because you saw yourself having a breaking down. Like, I mean, you saw yourself crying. You saw yourself losing the relationships and feeling bad. And as a person that you will feel kind of something similar.
Yeah.
Now, in order to be able to deal with that, what I have found that it helps me tremendously and helps the kids when you model it is to be able to identify facts and feelings as two different separate ways.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're relocating, that you have relocated and then your spouse is deployed, they're not with you, creates again some facts about your feelings. Being able to say that it's funny, we say about self-awareness so often, but when you actually ask adults to say, hey, what do you feel right now, we go back to the 5 simple feelings. It's very crucial to understand and be able to acknowledge what you feel on the spot. Why? Because then deployments become this time where you are very angry with your spouse. You don't want to talk to them. You come back to yourself. You are hiding yourself.
Yeah.
You're trying to put a mask.
Mm-hmm.
You bottle down just because you're trying to cope with what is happening around you. And I believe this is very, very dangerous for couples and the relationships that you build with your kids and what the kids understand because they feel what is
Mm-hmm.
going on. So being able to say, I am sad because you're not here. Talk to your spouse, talk to yourself, say, I'm sad. And how does that come up? As aggressiveness. You
Yeah.
pick up, "Hey, what happened? You become angry. If you understand the real feeling, now in our example, sadness, I miss you. I
Mm-hmm.
really miss you. And you cry or whatever you express it as sadness,
Mm-hmm.
understand that anger is how do you call it? Anger is the behavior that comes out
Mm-hmm.
of it and not the feeling that creates it.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd say, oh, so Eleni, I understand. I have self-awareness. I'm super angry at my spouse. Yes, but what do you feel under it?
Yeah.
If I believe that for me, number one, if I gave one advice on what to happen when our spouse is not here
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be here with us, is to be able to identify what we feel, because then we become more honest.
Mm-hmm.
When we become more honest, especially when the other person does not see us, they're not here to acknowledge our reality. When we
Yeah.
become honest, the relationship will build no matter the distance.
Yeah.
Because the other people understand that we come to them with whatever we have. How now do we build that? That's another question.
Mm-hmm.
It's another skill. Why does it work though? Because it is who we really are.
Yeah.
And that's where connections become. And if you have connection, you're not afraid of distance anymore. You feel sad, you feel angry, you feel all the emotions, but you're not afraid that this will destroy your relationship or you.
Yeah.
Honesty, honesty,
Yes.
honesty.
Yes, and that perspective is incredibly powerful, and all of those key points that you shared are essential for people to like take notes, work through it, really do get curious about not just that bubbling anger at the surface, for example, and the emotions, but what else is under that, because there's definitely going to be some things underneath that anger for sure. I'm so glad that you highlighted that, but the one thing I really, really wanted to pull out to make sure that is highlighted is the honesty about how you're feeling, because yes, identifying it is crucial, getting curious about it and really getting familiar with it and what is truly happening underneath the surface is absolutely crucial, right? But because we really truly, I think so many of us think we have to hold it all together. Our service member is doing something scary and dangerous,
Yes.
and they're doing the hard thing, right? We have to be back here supporting from a place of strength. And I say that sarcastically, because of course we don't. We're human beings. We've got to be honest with ourselves and allow ourselves the emotion. And I don't say that from on my high horse from a platform. I say that as a person who experienced a deployment with my husband when our children were very young, and I lost it. I crumpled because I was trying my darndest to hold it all together. I was caring for a 9-month-old and caring for a toddler, and in a place where I didn't have a super strong community, and trying to present myself like I am strong. Of course I'm strong. I'm a former service member. I'm an Army veteran. Yes, I'm strong. I'm from New York. Like, you know what I mean? All of these personas that I took on, and I wanted the world to believe that I was strong. I've got it. I don't crumble, until I did. Until
Okay.
that I burst out into tears in the middle of the PX when a well-meaning wife asked me how I was doing, until my mother and father-in-law finally came to visit, and I burst into tears in the kitchen in a moment of silence. Like there wasn't even a conversation going on, right? until I crumpled. I could no longer hide what was truly going on. And it was so unnecessary to get to that point. If we're honest with ourselves, if we give ourselves permission to not be perfect, to not hold it all together, to have what we might think of weakness, but really it's just vulnerability, and it's not synonymous, right? I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but yes, I wanted to highlight what you said and the importance of, let's be honest with ourselves about what we're feeling. You don't have to hold it all together. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. You don't have to be the strongest person you know. And people saying that you're strong doesn't mean that you always have to show up as perfect. You are strong even if you cry, especially because you've allowed yourself to cry, right?
It's very, very important. And how much strength, like I want people to really think about that. How much strength is there at a person saying honestly what they really feel?
Yeah.
This is the real strength, because whatever happens to you through you. You're not, it's not only a shield. When you pretend you're strong, you know that the door will close and you will cry and people will judge whatever it is and connect with this shield.
Yeah.
But when you are allow yourself to say, hey, I'm new here and I'm actually lost. I don't know what I'm doing. People will connect with that.
Yes.
And a lot of courage being able to say, you know what, I just came here and yeah, I'm sad these days. I don't even want to go out these days, but I need to because I need to make new connections. But I'm sad. I don't even want to do that. The strength that comes from that person, it doesn't look like you're strong because you show your sad face. Those people, however, and if you notice yourself throughout the years, you have made real connections because of that. That connection stayed strongly.
Yeah.
So what we look like and what we actually are and what we feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, the strength is in the long process. We don't feel strong when we show this face.
Right.
We feel vulnerable.
And perhaps it's about redefining what strength is, right?
Yeah,
Not thinking that it's the bold, like always having it all together and, not crying and not letting our guard down, but the strength is the courage to be vulnerable and to feel the hard or, challenging emotions. There is strength in that, and maybe just redefining what strength looks like from the beginning, so that when you're going through those moments, you are reminded there is strength in this process of vulnerability and, feeling the emotions.
Very important to show that to the kids, because if you do that in front of the kids all the time, they will expect themselves to be always on the positive side, and they will lock themselves that, hey, stress is not allowed. It's not a good thing to feel sad. It's not a good thing to cry. It's not a good thing. Now, if they lock themselves from a young age into that, hey, we always have to be positive, we always have to have a smile, then you're really crippling, like disabling all the feelings a kid is to experience, like sadness, like anger, everything that is considered difficult. You're crippling it. You're not allowing it to develop. And when you do that in a developmental stage that is early, it will be harder for this adult to be able to do it for themselves when they do become adults. Now, understanding that and being able to showcase that, okay, this is hard now. There is the real strength, being able to control yourself and model for your kids. So, I really encourage people to come forward, to find other wives, to find other spouses. I'm saying wives, but other spouses. Actively connect and try to show themselves. Now, you were talking a lot with entrepreneurs. Of course, when you are in your role as a professional, you need to hold it together. You don't have to do that all the time, especially in front of the kids. You have to show who you are if you want them to be able to create meaningful relationships. Vulnerability creates meaningful relationships, and meaningful relationships create happiness. That's number one. And happiness. So
the other thing I love that you mentioned, modeling. You've said this throughout this time we've been talking together, modeling for children, showing them through your own actions and leading through by example of, caring for yourself and experiencing the emotions and understanding understanding and accepting that transitions are tough. You get to feel that, you get to experience it and be in it in order to process it, right? So the thing that I always talk about modeling for our children is self-care. So as we kind of start to wind down the conversation here, I wanted to wrap up with this because there's no escaping it. You have to have self-care as part of your process every day, all day, to again, going back to the beginning, not to just survive, but to thrive. So I've shared it a million times. People have heard it from my mouth, but I would love to have your perspective on what it looks like for a parent to model self-care in the different facets of military life. If you want to like kind of summarize or combine them, that's fine. But when we're talking about PCSs, deployments, kind of these major things that really kind of throw us into a tailspin, what does it look like to model that self-care for our kids?
So put it simply, you have a lot of, as a person who is relocating, you have a lot of things to do. You have to do a lot of things. So all the tasks. So when a child sees you doing all the tasks first, and then if you have the time, you go to the gym. If you have the time, you eat well. If you have the time, that means that doing is more important than being. And I guess this is very crucial, because if we understand that, then we will be able to say, actually, it is a priority. It is a priority to show to my child that doing is more important than being. Self-care is being well. Maybe you need to call a friend. Maybe you need to do twice to go to your yoga classes or to the gym. Of course, you need to eat well. Whatever you eat, you become. Whatever you exercise, that's energy is going to be built in order for you to do all the stuff you need to do, right? So if I simplify it for myself, is what I need to be in order to be my biggest, my thriving self, right? When I ask this simple question, and I'm a person who likes to do a lot of things, so I don't jump into the things. I'm stepping back, and I'm able to say, I will have my meal, I will have my self-care routine, and then I will do the task. And I will be able to do it faster. So holding back from the impulse of doing and thinking being. I don't know if that helps, but it does help me in terms of taking the right decision, especially when I feel stressed. And that's what a relocation requires, like be able to hold all together with the stress.
Yeah.
Now, children, researchers show that children that see their parents actually do all the stuff and not self-care, they will not do self-care for themselves. That's not going to be their first priority.
Yeah.
So thinking again, what do you want your child to do, and do it for them? Sometimes, especially if you're a person who likes to give and offers, because the people who actually do all the tasks are givers. They come from their heart where they want to offer to the kids and the family all the results from the tasks that they choose to do.
Yeah.
Choosing to show that, it will really get to the core of the being of your child.
Yeah. I love that. I think that is an absolutely beautiful note to wrap up on. But before we do close out, you have provided so much incredible information, and I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. And I want to thank you because, like I mentioned, I serve a community of military spouse entrepreneurs. If you take off the entrepreneur, we're all military spouses, and so many of us are moms. And so I very much speak to attending to yourself as a whole person, right? If we just focus on the business or we just focus on certain things and we don't give ourselves an entire picture of self-care, if we don't care for the whole person, at some point just the floor is going to drop out underneath us. And I personally don't speak a lot about how the children are impacted. I talk about how we model as parents, right? How we can show kids through our own actions how to be, how to care for ourselves, and so that they will grow up to do that. But what I don't talk about is how we can help our kids in attending to what they're going through. And so you brought that perspective today. And I just really wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being able to offer that to our military spouse community. Because it's, it's just absolutely essential to be able to not just care for ourselves, but the people that we love. It's who we are. As moms, it's who we are. So thank you for that.
I'm very honored to be here and have this conversation. And it's a shout out to the spouses out there to get themselves out, to make this phone call and create connections. That will help the kids so much. So much.
Yeah.
Like,
thank you. So are there any final thoughts that you kind of just did, but just in case there's anything that's left on your mind before we wrap, is there any final thoughts that you have that you'd like to share?
Yes, the last thing I want to go by is take care of your beautiful mind and your beautiful self. If you do that, you will see how your kids take care of themselves.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. If somebody wanted to reach out to you or work with you or have a deeper conversation with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
So my website is eleniparisi.com.
Mm-hmm.
And my YouTube channel is the same, Eleni Parisi. You can find me on YouTube, on Facebook, and Instagram.
Okay. And we'll share your links to all of those places in the description so people can just easily click on that stuff. But thank you so much for being here with me today and having this discussion and sharing all of your amazing wisdom. And thank you for what you do as a spouse. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. That was an honor.